Mobile apps are the new norm of how we interact with technology today. Mobile has been stealing the spotlight from the desktop for the past decade, and it never really stopped. Just last year, we saw mobile become the favorite way for people to buy during Black Friday, and this year didn't stay behind at all. With that in mind, a lot of initiatives focused on facilitating the development and optimization of mobile apps have become available in the market. One of those tools is Google Firebase, a newly acquired tool by Google that is now part of the Google Cloud Platform family. Google Firebase is a powerful and flexible SDK that brings to the table a lot of tools focused on the development, optimization, and growth of your mobile app. This video will be focused on Firebase Analytics. First, I want to give you an overview of all that Firebase can offer your app. Then we'll dive a little bit deeper into Firebase Analytics and end on data activation, just to understand how to use the data that you measured to run campaigns and improve user growth and retention. So let's understand a little bit of what Firebase is. Firebase SDK is divided into three different sections: build, measure, and growth. The build section of the SDK offers you tools that are the backend server-side functionality that every app needs to be robust, be it storage and management with real-time databases, Cloud Firestore or cloud storage, or even backend functionality such as authentication and cloud functions. Authentication in this case provides you with a login functionality for your users to log in with social media and network through SMS or even within your own backend solution. And Cloud Functions offer the server-side functionality that you need to process data and to do calculations that you would otherwise have to do on the front end of your app. The measurement part of the Firebase SDK offers tools that provide insight into how your app is performing and how users are finding the different functionalities that you provided them with. So for example, if you use Crashlytics or crash reporting, Firebase will provide you with a deep insight into users that are having critical issues with the app and what devices they are using or operational system versions that they are using, so you can better provide guidance to your development team to improve on whatever is causing those crashes. On the other hand, if you use Google Analytics, you can get deep insight into how users are actually behaving within the app itself and how they're using the different functionalities that you provide them. More importantly, you can understand if they are reaching the goals your app was built to do, and thus understand if your app is actually being successful with the users that you already have. And finally, the growth part of the SDK offers powerful tools focused on better communicating with the users that you already have and also bring new users to your experience. The cloud messaging and remote config are great examples of tools that provide ways for you to better communicate with the users that you already have. The cloud messaging is a way for you to create campaigns that are based on notifications, and remote config is a tool for personalizing the content of your app. Both of those tools are powered by the measurement that you have already done within Firebase Analytics and can offer different experiences for different segmentations that you create based on user behavior. Getting new users is part of Firebase's integration with AdWords and AdMob and more than 50 different ad networks, so you can create and promote different campaigns for user acquisition. Another tool that is very interesting is predictions, which also provides, based on the measured data that you already have, ways for you to create segmentations and audiences that are more likely to convert and actually do actions that are valuable to you. Now let's get a little bit deeper into Firebase Analytics. The interesting part of Firebase Analytics, and as it works within the SDK, is that whenever you have an implementation of Firebase Analytics, it acts as a hub of data collection that within its native collection with Google Tag Manager can send the data to a lot of third-party apps such as Google Analytics, Tune, and AppsFlyer, many others that are recognized and connected directly to GTM. That means that with only one implementation of Firebase, you can have that same data flow to different tools that have different purposes.
Now, whenever you have Firebase Analytics implemented, a lot of data gets collected automatically, and a lot of data can be collected in a custom manner. The interesting part is that the reports are all tailor-made and focused on mobile apps. It's a very mobile-specific view. And I want to go over the reports that you see to understand a little bit of how that vision is actually very, very different from web analytics-based applications. So whenever you get to the main dashboard, what you see is a panel with active users, which is the calculation done within the different sessions that users might have monthly, weekly, and daily within the app. The average revenue is already calculated based on the average revenue per user and average revenue per paying user, all calculations that are very mobile-centric. Also, whenever the application gets started for the first time, an event called First Open is also sent to Firebase Analytics. And the way it does its attribution to campaigns is not based on downloads, but rather if the person actually opened your app for the first time. And if that data is collected and connected to Firebase, this panel here shows exactly how many people are opening the app and already shows the lifetime value calculation based on the revenue they generated. It also focuses on retention cohorts, understanding how many people kept using your app after the first time they have downloaded and opened the app initially. That's very important because we all know that users that are acquired by an app are much more than visitors from a web page. So it's important to understand if people are finding value continuously within the apps, because that's what makes your app tick. That's what makes the revenue come back, and that's what makes people happy. Also, engagement is focused on time spent within the app. So basically not focusing on how many screens a person saw per session, but rather understanding how many sessions a user has within a time frame and how much time users have spent within your app is way more important than how many screens they saw or how deep he got into your app itself. Now, this is important because understanding this panel means understanding your app. So usually apps that have a lower attention span that are their focus, like social apps, will probably need to have a lower session time, and having a higher session time will be actually a bad thing. So it's important to understand relative to your app's objectives what actually this data means. Also, in-app purchases and the connection to the store in-app purchases can be done through Firebase as well, and it shows here how many users and how many times users have used in-app purchases, and of course the revenue generated by those. Also, version distribution is very important. So, of course, we know that whenever you upload a new version of your app to the App Store or Google Play, it will take some time for the users to actually engage with that new version, and some portion of your users will always not remember to update the app. So it's important for you to understand what is that proportion in terms of the version's distribution, so you can maybe run notification campaigns and ask your users to update to the latest version. Also, this distribution of devices is very important to understand if people of lower-end phones or higher-end phones are more and or less interested on your app will make the decisions of the next upgrades and next features you bring to the app more and more important and more relevant. Firebase also automatically collects the information of where people are and can show you a map of the distribution based on the countries people are using your app from. And also demographical information that are shared between all apps that have the Firebase SDK Analytics implemented will bring the vision that you need and the perspective that you need on gender distribution, also age distribution. Again, based on apps that have the SDK implemented, this information gets shared, and you have a very interesting view of how many people and who are actually the people who are using and getting interested in your app. And also, lastly, with the same idea, a vision and a panel with interests is shown. So you can understand basically all other apps within the mobile devices of your users, how and what are the categories of those apps. So basically, what is the best correlation and relationship you have in terms of new and different apps that you might have within your users' devices. So maybe you're a game and you understand that there's a good percentage of users that also share interest for news and weather apps. So if you run campaigns, you might want to run on those apps that have a similarity of people and interests. That if you run campaigns on those apps, you might actually bring new people and people that you would rather not segment or create an audience for before. Firebase collection of data is all based on events and user data. So events are separated into different lines, and you can collect up to 500 events that are separated into the automatically collected events, that are events that are basically supported natively by the SDK, but the SDK opens up completely for you to implement your own custom events, so you can mark and collect important actions that your users might have and might take within the application. So the log event function and the way that the SDK provides for you to collect within the Google Analytics or the Firebase Analytics, every event that you collect goes to the list and gets a vision of how many times it has occurred and how many users have had them, and of course it compares with the last time frame that you had, so you can understand growth or decrease into how many events have happened. This is a reference that you might want to have for all the automatic events that happen. So for example, every time a user opens the app or reinstalls the app for the first time, a first open event is sent. That's how the Firebase SDK also aggregates attribution. So if the users have a first open event sent with the reference or a reference from a specific campaign, that attribution happens, and you get the attribution report filled with that source. But all sorts of events are collected, from the upgrade that a user might do on their OS to whenever they have a crash, or even when they interact with a notification sent from the Firebase cloud messaging tool. Another great use for Firebase Analytics events is the creation of funnels. You can essentially tell Firebase to track different events in a sequence in order to understand different processes that users might have to go through in a linear path. That vision will give you an interesting view on specific events and the number of users that interacted with them, or the counts or how many times the events happen, independent of users going through them or not. Another side of the data collection from Firebase Analytics is user properties. User properties are characteristics of users that you want to collect independently of how many times they've happened, in order to understand better your audience. So the way that Firebase works with this is that whenever you set a new property, you can create via the interface from Firebase the name of that property, which is usually something about your users. Maybe it's ID or his age or whenever he is from, or any kind of information that you might want specifically to a person. And then you can fire from the SDK that information, and it gets collected within the user properties report. The properties also are automatically collected, are a number of them. And you can see here from a reference standpoint of how and what kinds of properties are automatically collected. So the age, the app store, where the person is from, the version of the app that he's using, the country, the brand, and even the time when the first open event actually happened are all collected automatically and can be used to segment and to better filter reports even from events, so you can better understand your audience. And audiences are everything in Firebase Analytics. So in understanding the usage of events and user properties together creates audiences. So basically, audiences are there to filter the people that use your app to answer specific questions. So the example that you see here are, let's say I want to see all the people that had a fatal exception, that crashed. So I would create an audience with all the users that had an event of crash actually sent to Firebase, and maybe I want to segment even further and say that I want to segment only people from an 18 of years old or above. That's how I can create audiences, mixing both events and user properties to segment the audience of people that use the app, so I can enable myself to create interesting campaigns and grow my app audience and also bring people back. So audiences are usually focused on answering specific questions. Some examples that I got here is somebody that bought something more than once. Is the person who returning users has they use the app for more than a week? Did they use more than 10 minutes? Other questions get answers basically by creating specific audiences that then get populated automatically by making this filter that is applied to users that fired specific events and user properties. The interesting part is that you can then use those audiences to connect with different tools from Firebase, such as cloud messaging or dynamic links. And say, for instance, that I want to select my audience that is my crash users, and I use a cloud messaging campaign focused on those users, that we're going to send a notification campaign saying, look, we're really sorry, our Firebase app crashed, and here's the discount coupon if you go back to it. And the discount coupon actually has embedded into it a dynamic link we also created within Firebase that can create a deep link, so people that click that notification, instead of opening the base app, actually go directly to the shopping cart with the discount for a specific product, and they can just purchase it and feel good again and reestablish their connection to the app. So that's the real powerful usage, again, because you're collecting data not only to understand the usage and why people are leaving your app or maybe not coming back to it, or why people are not engaging enough or for as long as time as you prepare them for, but also to use that data to actively talk and communicate with your audience and bring new people in. And also, again, on the side of bringing actually new people in, you can create those audiences, and the integration that Firebase has with AdWords and AdMob can be used to segment the campaigns you do external to your app to bring people in based on the same audience that you might have. So if you have an audience, for example, here of expert users, of people that do specific events or spend X amount of time within your app, that you really like those people, and you want to bring new people that are like those people that have a great potential of becoming expert users of your app, maybe you want to focus your campaigns on AdWords or on AdMob, focused on people that look like that a specific audience. That's a very powerful usage of it. Continuing that trend, let's talk a little bit about data activation. So how to use the data that we've measured and all the information that we have now through our events and user properties and the audiences we created to bring new people in and to better connect with your audience and make sure that people that are using the app are very happy and very satisfied. So basically, Firebase Analytics connects with a bunch of tools, not only within the scope of Firebase itself, but also Google-specific tools that are outside the scope of Firebase. So within Firebase, we can use tools such as cloud messaging and dynamic links to better connect with the audience we already have. So the example that I shown you before, we use cloud messagings to send notifications to people that might have a problem with the app to try to bring them back in after we did some updates, so they can actually show it to themselves that the app is already better. Another cool tool is predictions that uses and creates audiences based on user behavior to algorithmically understand people who are more keen to maybe leave the app and not come back, or people that are very interested and are more prone to converting more and becoming an expert. The other side of it is remote config and invites. So invites is a way for you to create a full stack invite system that provides your users a method to share the app and maybe get something back in return, or maybe a treat whenever the person invited gets in and downloads and opens the app. And remote config offers a way to customize the app. So basically you can customize the way your app looks and the content that is shown based on triggers that are based on the measurements that you do and user behavior. And again, based on the audiences that you created. Outside Firebase, on the other hand, you can use a bunch of different tools to get either deeper in your analysis and insights that you have on your app, but also to activate the audiences as well. So one cool example is Google BigQuery, which is Google's cloud platform database solution and data warehousing solution. So you can extract raw data that is collected from Firebase to create powerful and deep analysis, or Google Data Studio, which is a cool way for you to create reports and show it to your stakeholders and make sure that people are all on the same page. Again, Data Studio is connected directly to Firebase, so you can create a report that is connected purely to Firebase and never needs to get updated manually again. But also, on the other hand, you can use tools such as AdMob or DoubleClick or AdWords to create campaigns that bring people in. And having all that data that you already measured can be a powerful asset when creating audiences that you use as segments on those campaigns to make sure that you're trying to find the right people and people with the right patterns of behavior and demographical patterns, so you can bring the best people in and maximize the return on investment on your campaigns as well. And lastly but not least, Google Analytics. The classical Google Analytics solution is also connected to Firebase. So through GTM, we can send the Firebase events to Google Analytics. If you want to have that classical reporting view that Google Analytics offers, it's already possible. So you don't have to choose between using Firebase or Google Analytics. That's why Firebase came to stay and came to be a tool that actually becomes the centerpiece of your mobile application's development, measurement, and growth. And there we go. This was an overview of Firebase and what it can bring to your app. And I hope it was useful to you for your future applications and current developments alike. Thank you very much.